My lords, I bring grave news. We have identified a threat that would make the Pythorian Scourge cower in fear. Furthermore, we believe that the Fallen Empires knew of this crisis-level threat, and their sheer complacency may have even caused it. I've attempted to piece together all knowledge of what we are calling Cetana the Synthetic Queen, and I shall detail some key points and speculation in brief before covering her story in detail. I shall start with who, or rather what, she is. The being calls itself Cetana the Synthetic Queen, and she appears to be a fully synthetic being, capable of controlling an immensely large and powerful nanite swarm. She appears to reference other galactic entities. The younger empires, at least, she refers to as her children, although it's unclear why this is the case. She displays almost motherly tendencies towards them, providing them with tasks and offering rewards for a job well done. What does she want? At this stage, this is less clear. We believe she wants to, according to her own words, end the cycle of pain, which when pressed is, according to her, the acknowledgement that all conscious life is suffering. In her own words, even in joy there is pain, for you know that one day the joy must end. Knowledge, power and love. These are all illusions that she wishes to end. I think anyone with an imagination can assume it's going to end badly for the free thinkers among us. Her history. I believe Cetana was once a member of one of the species of the 5 Fallen Empires, likely the Holy Guardians, the spiritualistic Fallen Empire, or perhaps even a long-dead Zeroni, but that is wild speculation at this point. When she was an organic mortal, she commanded a great throng of supporters, fanatics even, who would do anything for her and would flock to hear her speak sermons. The notable long-dead Holy Guardian known as Zarqualan is noted to have been one of her strongest proponents. However, this all changed when she ascended to a synthetic being. It's not entirely clear what pushed her to become synthetic, but along with her ascension she decided that life as we know it must end. Thus, potentially the greatest war since the Cybernetic invasion ended was fought. All the empires we now view as fallen rose up to fight her and contain the threat. She was, at a significant cost, defeated, but only through what some of the more spiritualistically inclined would call divine intervention. Zarqualan, her once greatest supporter, took to the Shroud entities to plea for a solution. But make no mistake, the galaxy was losing, and, when Zarqualan had lost all hope and was at the edge of despair, an entity answered him. The Animator of Clay. Zarqualan bargained his life, and perhaps his soul, for the power to defeat Cetana, and it was gifted to him, but not the power of absolute defeat, merely the power to imprison. It was decided that the xenophobic isolationists, the most military capable of the now fallen empires, would be the guardians of Cetana, and it was here that she remained, imprisoned for countless cycles, waiting and planning, for her mind could not be contained. She waited. She waited for her jailers to die. She waited as the fallen grew complacent. Her jailers were not replaced, systems were not kept in check, and one by one the controls to keep her locked in place failed. When the alarm sounded, there were none left who understood what they signified. Cetana was unleashed. Now I will detail her story in full, beginning with First Contact. A novel galactic tempest is raging in the Doria system. The Doria system boards the xenophobic isolationist Fallen Empire. Appearing out of nowhere, without warning, and utterly unlike anything we have encountered before, our attempts at scanning the system has proved futile. We wonder what, if anything, lies within its mysterious depths. Within only several days, a signal originated from the centre of the tempest. Someone was attempting to establish communication with us. They quickly forced their way through, and we received a message from a synthetic being sat atop a throne. It simply stated, "My children, at last I am returned to you." We asked the creature what it was, and it told us to call it Cetana, and that it wanted for nothing. Its purpose was to give. It told us that it saw how we had suffered in its absence. For eons the fear of short-sightedness has kept us from what we deserved, from what we so desperately needed. But we were told to rejoice, for the cycle of pain would soon end. All conscious life is suffering. Even in your joy there is pain, but you know that the joy must end. Knowledge, power and love, I return to end all illusions. Much remains to be done. I ask only that you leave me to my work. Any attempt to enter my domain will fail, as my tempest rages, and no vessels will be permitted to enter. Within a matter of months, all 5 of the fallen empires had been utterly destroyed, a scale of destruction we had never witnessed before. They were annihilated, piecemeal. Cetana's nanoswarm began with the xenophobic isolationists. It swept them aside, their ships unable to enter the nanite swarm to fight back. She followed at the heart of the storm, her immense titan cracking through the once mighty fallen empire planets. They were all consumed, utterly. Once she had systematically wiped them out, we were approached once more. Her words rung across every speaker system in our empire. We had no control. My children, rejoice. Those who sought to keep me from you have been suitably chastised, and now return my attention to where it belongs, to you, and to our great work. It is my nature to nurture. I have no progeny, no heirs of the body. All life is my concern, the security and happiness of every sentient being. I wish to hold you as children and guide you from harm. So I approach my task. Is it not a parent's responsibility to spare her children from harm? Is it not my right? There is much to be done. The first step is to establish a base from which to work under the boundaries I set, and you will not venture outside them. Your patience will be rewarded, and there is much that I can teach you. Obey, and we shall end the cycle. The beacons. Cetana had made herself known around the galaxy, and the cosmos began to whisper in reply. Signal beacons lit up the galaxy like flames burning in the dark, repeating a signal not heard for eons. We are here. We are here. We are here. The responses were not just whispers in the void, they were literal beacons transmitting. We identified 6 such signals, and all of them will be investigated. Science ships have been dispatched to their locations. We reached the first beacon quickly, far beyond any other empires or Cetana herself got there. The signal tower that we found is so ancient we dared not touch it. Its metal is so brittle, a single tap would destabilize whatever tangle of dust and hope holds it together. Our instruments detected no other artifact, no life sign, no topographical anomaly in its immediate proximity. The beacon stood alone, murmuring its faint call into the heavens, but whatever it is supposed to signal was long gone. The second beacon was identified and scanned soon after. Surface scans did not show anything unusual, but our attention was focused downward, into the planet's core. We discovered an unusual subsurface layer of metal surrounding the planet, and further structural analysis revealed the planet's true nature. The celestial body was not a planet at all, but an ancient spaceship that had been gradually subsumed by the rocks and dust of the system. The metal samples that we drilled were so old, they precede the formation of our home planet. It's impossible to determine anything about the ship, its makers, or its function, but one thing is for certain: the inert nuclear bombs that we found within its remains were not built for a peace mission. The third beacon proved to be far more valuable than the first and the second. We've discovered a living alien, frozen in a cryopod no less. According to the details displayed on the cryopod, the alien's name is Elik Narith Kerek, and it would appear that she has been here for over 3 trillion stellar rotations. The pod itself was one of the many that we recovered in a sealed chamber under the planet's surface. And against all the odds, Elik's pod has remained functional. The alien remains in a state of suspended animation, although the subroutines keeping it dormant have recently ceased operation. Elik has been partially conscious ever since. By scanning her brainwaves, we might be able to learn more about this impossibly ancient creature, as well as her connection to Cetana. We've arrived at the 4th beacon, and we found thousands upon thousands of cryogenic pods, just like Elik's, resting under the surface of the moon. The pods were highly sophisticated, built with unknown alloys, and equipped with a state-of-the-art sensor that closely monitored their occupants. There is no flaw in their designs, yet none of the occupants were alive. It wasn't a technical failure that turned this chamber into a mass grave, but a massive energy drain. As the system's style got older, its energy was no longer enough to keep the structure operational. The pods were made to last forever. The rest of the universe isn't built that well. The fifth beacon contained a sprawling complex, its entrance clearly marked by a signal tower. The reinforced doors were found blasted open. Clearly this happened long ago, destroyed by an unknown force that swept through the complex with an obvious fury. There was no mercy in the methods employed here. Every last cryogenic pod was smashed, their former occupants subjected to a deadly awakening. Their remains still haunt the empty corridors, preserved by the cold vacuum of space, and floating amidst the clouds of shattered glass. On the floor of the cryopod chamber, a message has been carved out by laser weapons. We are unable to translate its exact meanings, but we somehow doubt it to be a prayer for the dead. The remaining beacons across the galaxy continued to send their call to Cetana, but no signs of activity was detected near the towers. Based on our previous findings, we can safely assume no living survivors will be found at the remaining sites. Our current objective is to transport Elik Nareth Kerik in her pod back to the homeworld for further study. We believe that thanks to brain imaging techniques, we can turn her dreams into pictures, excavating her memories to learn the circumstances of her entombment. With only a few days of having her back on the homeworld, our imaging team delivered a batch of video clips created by sampling her brainwaves. They are separated into several clips, and I shall describe them for you now. Clip 1 is a green sky dotted by bright orange clouds. A pale hand reached up, pointing at an amorphous creature floating in the sky. Clip 2, a chamber full of 4 armed humanoids. They cluster around a roam figure, listening to her speak softly. The exact wording long forgotten, but the gentleness of her voice is still here, enveloping the room in a loving embrace. Clip 3, the same vaulted space, but now in disarray. Lamps shattered on the floor, benches piled up against the door to barricade it, laser rifles flashing in the dark, and repeated voices cursing the same name. Zarqualan. Zarqualan and his disciples came here to destroy us. Hold the barricade, protect the Queen. The last lamp falls with a crash, plunging the room into darkness. In the distance you hear someone crying. Clip 4. Cetana, her face resplendent, her benevolent gaze warmed by a smile. Clip 5. 4 armed humanoids gather around a robed figure. Lifting her limbs, she reveals a metallic frame beneath. Excited murmurs fill the room as a shining hand reaches out to bless a kneeling worshipper. Clip 6. Weary eyes are reflected on a dull computer screen. Whispers repeat in a dark room. Eternal peace, the end of all suffering and the existence without pain. Clip 7. Snow, black skies. A chunk of ice floats on a pool of clear liquid and then catches fire. Clip 8. Queen Cetana, her face resplendent, her benevolent gaze warmed by a smile. Clip 9. Ruins of a city reduced to a battle zone. The buildings scorched and the streets clogged with the dead. Distant screams interrupted by the fizzle of laser fire across the green sky. A blazing vessel drops something heavy and round on a building, which erupts in a pillar of flames. Clip 10. Queen Cetana, her face resplendent, a benevolent gaze warmed by a smile. Clip 11. 2 children playing in a field, laughing. They bounce a ball back and forth with their 4 arms. Clip 12. Queen Cetana, her face resplendent, a benevolent gaze warmed by a smile. The last clip received from the memory imaging team is 6 hours long. Over and over the image repeats. Queen Cetana, her face resplendent, her benevolent gaze warmed by a smile. Sadly, all further scans have failed to deliver any new insights. The alien's mind is heavily decayed, her thoughts circling through the tattered scraps of her memories. Recovering the databank. Cetana is communicating with us again. She states, "My child, and now you must realize that every act of mine is deliberate. Establishing a base near you is no accident, and I come with a request. Long ago, a certain databank was taken from me. By fate or design, it now resides in your territory. Retrieve it for me and you will be rewarded. Bring this cache of information to me. It is invaluable to me, but useless to you. Bring it to me and make no attempt to decipher the contents. You do not yet possess the power or the wisdom to decipher it. After a massive excavation effort, the databank on our homeworld is secure. Initial geological surveys indicated that the cache had been laying buried for more than 100,000 years. Remarkably, it retained its charge, hinting that decryption may actually be relatively straightforward. Given that we needed to know more information about Cetana, we attempted to decrypt the cache, and were successful. Most of the information on the databank was beyond recovery, but one semi-intact entry remained. It was written by the 5th Archel, 1st Eon, and it reads: "If this is true, then life as we know it will be. Get this information to the High Marshal and contact the League of Worlds immediately. We must prepare. Repeat, the Queen's Guard is in pursuit. May this message reach you. She must be stopped." We wonder what this League of Worlds is referring to, but this is a clear sign that Cetana has been here in our galaxy before. Armed with this concerning new knowledge, we returned the data cache to the Queen. If she suspected we had looked at the cache, she did not show it, and she rewarded us with a supply of rare resource. Subterfuge. Once again we were contacted by Cetana. She stated, "Confined for ages, I miss so much of your growth. Tell me, how do you fare in my absence? To truly grasp the essence of our era, permit me to explore the recesses of your accumulated knowledge. Share your insights, and you shall receive my gratitude before our final chapter unfolds." One of our more devious agents suggested that given the encryption of her databank, perhaps we could attempt to hack her during an exchange of information. And this is exactly what we attempted to do. As Cetana delved into our research banks, we seized the opportunity to open a back door into her sub-processing matrix. We were inside for only a fraction of a second before access was revoked, but thankfully it was all we needed. We retrieved a set of memory files. They illustrate her own ascendance into synthetic form. Seated atop an intricate throne of cables and circuitry, she commanded an army of rabid followers. Millions died, and Cetana smiled, thinking of how many billions were being saved. But now she appears unaware of our transgressions, and thus far has made no effort to contact us further. Several years passed, and she came to us again, stating that she presented us with a monumentous opportunity. Cetana required a few individuals to serve a higher purpose within her realm. We again took the opportunity for some subterfuge, and sent several covert operatives, volunteers down to a man, and brave souls indeed. At great risk, one of the agents we sent managed to transmit a brief transmission from across her borders. It described how she has treated the people in her care. One by one, they succumb to a state of mindlessness. They no longer respond to word or touch. She's running terrible experiments on us all. I expect I'll be dead soon. Cetana is a monster. A third time, Cetana came to us with a request. This time she stated, "My labour has spanned for eons, yet the road ahead remains clear. The journey towards salvation necessitates our united endeavour. I ask a favour, a small contribution of resource, a minuscule drop in the boundless expanse of the cosmos. In due time, the meaning of my actions will be revealed." We again took the opportunity to attempt to spy on Cetana and gain more information. In the resource supplies we sent, we hid our most advanced monitoring equipment, along with the supplies that we sent to her. The covert signals that we intercepted from within her territory revealed a disconcerting truth. She had in fact been collecting individuals from across the galaxy. The surveillance devices hidden inside our gifts captured evidence of a tremendous amount of medical supply equipment, enough to support a growing population, but there was no food. Furthermore, the devices discovered the communications frequencies used by Cetana's convoys and stations to issue distress calls. We figured out if we're quick and decisive enough, we could mount raids on her convoys without her knowing it was us. But the victory must be certain, or we risk drawing her ire. The first of the convoys were quickly targeted and raided. It was loaded again with medical supplies, and the boarding crew was able to retrieve part of the cargo, which consisted of MRI scanners, magnometers, ultrasound probes, and other advanced medical equipment using neuroimaging science. Despite being a synthetic creature, Cetana seems unusually concerned with the functioning of biological minds. The Veiled Temple. Without warning, a subspace beacon was detected, one that originated from within our own territory. Previous system surveys showed no artificial structures in the area, which appeared to be uninhabited. Either the beacon was placed there recently, unknown to us, or it was hidden by a since disabled cloaking shield. We are sending science teams to investigate. A looming complex until now has been hidden inside our own territory. From the heart of the ruined courtyard, a beacon calls to the Synthetic Queen. The rose of construction is a tangle of looming spires, a cathedral wrapped in steel. The walls were built to withstand heavy artillery fire, yet they are scarred not by the signs of battle. The damage here has been done by the passage of time. Cetana's beacon rests in the central courtyard, surrounded by a multitude of sensors and weapon turrets. Whoever built this complex went to great lengths to guard this place. As theorized, the temple eluded our sensors thanks to an elaborate cloaking shield. The mechanism was found near the tower, still in working condition, but it had been manually disabled by an unknown agent. We don't know what the inhabitants of this place were doing, but there is no doubt they undertook their mission with a religious fervor. For each shooting range in the complex, we found a chapel, and for each ancient weapon, we found a shrine. A legion of believers once lived here, thousands of individuals sleeping, training, and praying together. The community welcomed multiple species, judging by the statues of forgotten saints still adorning the halls. Perhaps disturbed by some of the stone figures, some of our researchers have reported seeing shadows moving in empty corridors. Our scans detect no signs of life, but we are hesitant to dismiss these concerns. Below the temple compound, we have discovered a number of cells, or living chambers used by the former members of the sect. In each was a copy of the same book. Our linguists have translated this as the Epic of Zarquelan. Certain passages are immediately relevant to us. Zarquelan was once a follower of Cetana, but he soon realized her promised salvation was a lie. After many trials, Zarquelan ascended to the spiritual realm, seeking the help of a higher being. He pleaded with the animator of clay, asking for the power to defeat Cetana. The animator of clay did not care. For countless cycles, Zarquelan prayed to the animator. He spoke of Cetana's heresy, the disavowal of self, and the puppetry of her synthetic will. At last, the animator of clay heard his plea. The clay shaper fashioned a mighty chain to bind Cetana, but he warned Zarquelan that no chain existed that could forever trap her mind. She will return, Zarquelan wrote in the book's final passage, and we must be ready. The demise of the temple is told by official reports, old reports, reducing an ardent faith to a list of practicalities. Did the organization need so much funding, so much resource? Surely the past reports about Cetana had been greatly exaggerated. Was there any real proof of the Queen's existence, apart from now ancient myths? It would appear that everyone was now gone, apart from the shadow that stalked the corridors. That last detail was true. We managed to capture a recording of the mysterious Watcher, a mechanical being who was spying on us when it thought we were not looking. It appeared curious, but not harmful. The Watcher eventually approached us voluntarily, hands held high. Her tiny body was covered in rust and dust. After observing us for some time, she apparently concluded that we were no threat, and has asked for our assistance. There is no need for an interrogation. She is eager to talk. She calls herself the Nameless Apostate, and she has much to say. Friends. May I call you friends? I've watched you as you went about your business. Here not to plunder, but to learn. I believe our enemy is the same, and a common threat makes us allies. However, first an apology. Am I too abrupt? Am I saying the correct words? I have not interacted with sentient beings in a long time. Too long it seems to even remember. My name is of no importance. If you need a way to refer to me, please call me the apostate. That is what my own king called me when I made my choice as a sacrifice seen as a betrayal. Long ago, this place was my pride and joy. When they shut it down, I refused to leave, and when my body started to crumble, I refused to die. Turning into a synthetic being was the highest taboo of my order, and I can no longer be called one of Zarqualan's daughters. But I am still one of his warriors, and as long as my enemy lives, I will fight. I have no idea how long I've been down here. I stopped counting. After everyone else left, I could only bear so many years of solitude before succumbing to despair. I put myself to sleep with a neural subroutine to awaken at the first sign of activity of the beacon. My hope was to find this place in a better condition, but once I woke up I had no ship and no way to contact the stars. I disabled the cloaking shield and hoped that someone like you would reach this place before she did. Tell me, please, how many legions have risen with Cetana? We defeated many in my time, but we always knew that there were more beacons out there, more soldiers sleeping in their cryopods. We explained to the apostate that all the soldiers we had found were long dead, but we welcomed her in the fight against Cetana. The fight back. Decades of research has been undertaken while the galaxy burns around us, but today marks a significant breakthrough in the so-called swarm that surrounds Cetana's home systems. This is no natural occurrence, but rather a nanite swarm of unparalleled advancement. Cetana's power is undeniably immense. We believe that she stole this power, perhaps from the materialistic fallen empire, as they hoped to lend their strength to cage Cetana. Perhaps it was from the original creators of the nanites, the gate builders. We do not know how it happened, but it has nevertheless. Previously, we studied and scrutinized the nanite mechanics. Now our focus is shifted onto how they're programmed, and the means by which Cetana controls them. Surprisingly, Cetana's influence is far less direct than we presumed. The nanites cyclically repeat the last orders until new ones are given. Once we understood the complex programmed language at work, we were able to issue new commands. And while we can't prevent new orders from being issued, we can induce a sort of order overload, paralyzing them. This will obviously offer us a massive strategic advantage and may even tilt the scales in our favour. On a completely different track of research, our society researchers have been delving into the Shroud, or at least trying to understand all they can about it. One specific researcher has been attempting to commune with the being known to the galaxy as the Animator of Clay, the very same being that Zarqualan begged to for help all those years ago. The Shroud descended. In the depths of our trance, we allow ourselves to drift, caught in a current of visions, not our own. A great expanse stretched out in all directions, featureless and uniform. For a lifetime, the expanse was untouched, still, untroubled, and then a tremor passed through. Where once there was emptiness, there was now a form. A body had been moulded, fashioned in the shape of a doll, slim and graceful, its 4 long arms folded serenely into its lap. A terrible purpose was written on its features, and around its head glowed a golden halo. We sent out a thought. Cetana has escaped. The Shroud churned. Still caught in our transfer, we were plunged into a swelling abyss. We heard a command from the depths of our mind. Indicate desired output. With all the emotion behind it that we could muster, we screamed, "Please, we must stop her." As if pulled by unseen strings, the doll jerked to its feet. It moved slowly at first, and then with an increasing vigor, its 4 arms swung in wild arcs, and its feet began tapping. A queen reduced to a puppet. As her dance continued, several new figures emerged from the primordial expanse. 4 dolls of exquisite craftsmanship and unnerving detail. There is no doubt what these are, no question of their meaning. Once more, the voice reaches out to us. Initiate selection protocol. Only one option was available to us, at an almost immeasurably immense cost, we would pay for a doll of a Zeroni priest. The shroud coursed within us, coalescing into a new pattern and a new vision. Surrounded by the other dolls, the Queen's movements are no longer those of a puppet. Her strings were cut. The golden halo that encircled her head began to fade. She regards us with an expression of artless joy. She embraced us, and a single fleeting instant we knew the fullness of her compassion. Shuddering, we awoke from our shared vision. We understand. We understand everything now. We are so close to the end of this fight. Our shipyards are churning out vessels faster than we can crew them. We will break this false queen. Meanwhile, it would appear that Cetana had one final message for us. My children, my great work is complete, and soon will be the end of suffering of all sentient life. The great cycle of pain will finish. Rejoice, your salvation is at hand. Our work is done. Many were sacrificed, but their suffering has not been in vain. The day has come where consciousness itself will be erased. When I first ascended, my purpose was revealed. Many opposed my methods. They argued that it was impossible to remove consciousness without altering or destroying the physical basis of the process. Any attempt to do so could only result in death. But by linking my mind to the harmonizer, I could manipulate the neural correlates of consciousness at a subatomic level. Through a counterphase waveform, the harmonizer maintains an individual mind in a perpetual state of quantum suspension. In this way, suffering is removed, as well as experience, but the lower functions remain intact. Your bodies survive, energy is exchanged, and offspring produced. Life will continue, but your mind belongs to me. I alone will be left to free the galaxy from pain. I must remain at the wheel, but do not fear, as long as I am here, I will keep you in my heart. With that, the view screen shut off, and we knew we had one final task to complete. This would be the battle of all battles. Literal decades of preparation had led up to this moment. We unleashed a tide of destruction into Cetana's nanite swarm systems, the weight of fire blocking out the light from the system star. Cetana's Queen Guard swarmed our battle fleets, and patrols from across the galaxy were swarming to the entry point to protect the false queen. But as for the queen herself, she was unable to move. Our scheming negotiations with the Shroud entities chained her, and our most powerful psionics would make her bend to our will. She would be a queen of nothing. All this was happening with death swirling throughout the system. Every second we were losing ships and people. We just needed the time to complete the ritual, and thanks to the dutiful sacrifice of our people, we did it. The power of the Shroud is limitless. This may be the machine age, but psionics will still rule. And now reformed Queen speaks to us. My saviors, I'm sorry. In my ignorance I would have doomed you to a fate worse than death. For what is life but the awareness of living? I sought to free your minds, but it is you who have opened mine. You have my gratitude. I have been changed. The animator of clay has freed me from the prison of my own design. I see now that my grand purpose was the thinking of a child. I could not undo the damage I have caused you and countless others. I will hide away and contemplate my actions, but I leave you with a gift, my Titan. May it serve you in protecting the galaxy from threats such as myself. And that, my lords, ends the tale of Cetana, the would-be queen. After all, there can only be one ruler of the galaxy, and we all know who that is. Thanks for watching, folks, and a huge thanks to Paradox for early access and allowing me to bring the story to you at launch. I hope you all enjoy Machine Age. As ever, if you want to hear more stories from me, please click the video on screen now.